Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana Fierastrau, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. This is Negotiating Happiness. I am your host, Adriana Fierastrau, and we are live on 107.7 and 105.3 on the United Public Radio Network, live in the beautiful city of New Orleans. So grab your lunch, grab your coffee, and let's just dive in. It's been a little while since I've been live. Life just sort of took over, and we've been setting up for a lot of different projects here at Ontario Assistant. We've been doing a lot of new things. We've been collaborating with some new people, some old people that we love, new people that we love. So I just wanted to come back on and have a little chat and sort of go over something that I've found to be really popular now with entrepreneurs, or I guess a different way of looking at how to properly assess your operations. So let's talk about inefficiencies, and let's talk about how we can, spot them, how we can fix them, or how we can approach them, because it's not always easy to fix that in your own business. So this is something that we offer to other entrepreneurs. But before we dive in, I feel like I haven't been on here in so long that I need to do like a whole introduction. So if you've never met me before, I'm Adriana Fierastrau, and I'm the founder at ontarioassistant.com. Don't judge us too harshly. We're redoing the website. But if you wanted to take a look, that's where you could go. And what do? We are, an online business management firm, and we deal with inefficiencies or business efficiencies, and we host this podcast as well. We transform chaotic business operations into streamlined success stories, and we're not helping entrepreneurs scale their dreams through smart automations and systems. I'm here chasing he's not a toddler anymore, but it feels like yesterday that he was a toddler. He's 5. I have a 5-year-old little boy. And I'm planning my next adventure. I love to travel. I actually have coming up here a vacation. It's not really a vacation, it's more like a work vacation, but anyway, it works out. I'm going back to Europe. I'm going back to Romania for a couple of weeks. And I'm actually thinking of, taking some videos and talking to entrepreneurs there too, and maybe putting together an episode for you guys so that you can see it here. That'll be something really different for us. So I'd love to do that. So yeah, that's who I am. We've been running this show now for about 2 years now, which is crazy. I've been doing a lot of replays because I think that the guests that I've brought on in the past have had so much experience and, good things to share that I really want people to have the opportunity to listen. The other thing too is, if you guys are ever looking at going back into the episodes, you'll find them on Facebook, you'll find them on the station channels as well. You'll find them on LinkedIn now, if you go onto my LinkedIn page, and you'll also find them on all of the podcasting, places that you typically streamline in. It feels so weird. I haven't talked to you guys in so long that now I'm like losing my train of thought. I'm not into it like I was before. I guess this is what happens when you don't practice, right? So let's sort of dive in and talk a bit about what is a business operations audit. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we are live, so you guys can go ahead and type in some comments. I'm just going to send it out for you guys right now so that you have a quick reminder here. And there we go. We've got Mel's on. Hello, Melissa. How are you? Let me just see here. Please send in your questions and comments. This is very weird. I really love having guests on the show, so I'm not always talking by myself. So there we go. Yeah, just a reminder, guys, like we are on Facebook, YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. You can find us pretty much anywhere. And all of the popular ones like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just look up United Public Radio Network, and you'll find all the archives there of all the episodes. So today, I wanted to dive in a little bit, but just before that, this is kind of where I'm at when I speak to entrepreneurs. Like, imagine working 60 hours a week and it just feels like the business is running you. You're not really running the business. So a lot of people that come to us with these kinds of issues are very burnt out or are about to, be burnt out. They're on the brink of burnout. So we want to make sure that we avoid that by having these systems in place, or by identifying what the gaps are or what our issues might be. Right. And the first thing that I hear is that, when you're panicking and you have too much work to do, they just think that hiring is the most natural next step. And that's not the case at all. Right. I think I've shared with you guys before the business operations map, and I'm going to share it again here because it is a really important visual tool for you guys to understand kind of the flow of things before you start hiring, before you do all that. In order to be successful in your hires or not waste money and time doing that, you need to have certain things in place, right? And if you don't have those things in place, you're stuck in this loop of hiring and rehiring and firing and all of that. You could be spending thousands of dollars on somebody who's ineffective, and not just because maybe it's them, it's because you don't have the tools or the systems to support them in their job. And that's really important. It's not just about delegating and just saying, hey, do this task. And we're all guilty of it because it's hard. It's hard to manage all of it all at once. So I'm going to show you guys again sort of what it looks like here. And this sort of goes back to the, hey, like, growth isn't linear, right? We talked about this previously. Just going to pop it up on the screen. If you guys are just sitting there listening, I will talk you through the different stages so that you understand, and then you can see it later if you'd like to. Just going to share my screen. There we go. So if you look at this, right, I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit for you guys. A lot of people, when they talk about hiring, you'd be on stage 3. We're not on stage 3 when we're trying to fix our operations. We are actually perhaps in the grow stage, or a reoccurring growth stage, right? So before you can go ahead and talk about, I need help and I need to spend thousands of dollars in hiring somebody, you need to make sure your brand's on point. You need to make sure that as you're growing, your leads are flowing, your clients are happy, and that your brand continues to grow before you add a team member in, right? Before you add that extra kind of category on there. And what does that mean? It means, you have to do your research. You have to show people how you provide value, and your marketing has to be very clear. And it takes a really long time for your marketing to be clear when you're running a brand, because you're still figuring out what's that niche, right? Like we've talked about this, when we're in the hustle stage, we're like, we can do anything. We can help you with anything, but that doesn't really help you, right? That only helps what you think the other person might need. But it's actually very confusing for your clients, because they never end up thinking of you as like, I know this person that does X things. They just say, oh, I didn't really know you did that. And I've made that mistake myself, over and over. Social proof is really important, right? So get your testimonials, get your reviews. People want to hear about other people, right? They want to see that. They want to see how you act with other people, and they want to see how well you've helped other people. And in stage 2, it's like you worry about the client experience, like how you making things as easy as possible for those clients, right? And then we kind of introduce tools. And maybe you're at the stage where you're using like 1 million tools, right? You have 1 million for everything. I have clients who are very tech savvy, and then I have clients who don't love that. And that's okay. We can find a happy medium. Do I think that you should be using 10 tools? 20? No, I don't. I think that when you have that volume of tools, you don't use them to their fullest unless you are some enterprise that has multiple departments. And a lot of the times the people that I work with are not that, right? So I think you need to test out some things and see what works best for you and then go with that. Because I mean, I'd love to set up a system for you that will, knock your socks off. But if you're not comfortable, using it, or if you don't like the way that it presents information, it's kind of useless to you, right? So we don't want to do that. We want to find something that works. We want to find something that you're going to be able to use day to day. And once you're in like stage 3, you can think about like, hey, do I need subcontractors to help me with the work? Do I need to actually have a team? And I always say this, people overlook this all the time before they decide to hire somebody as an employee versus a subcontractor. I always say, like, have you talked to your accountant about this? And they're, 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, I haven't. It's like, well, you should, because they're going to be able to give you a cost analysis of, is it actually going to be cheaper for you to use a subcontractor or an employee, right? Subcontractors typically have higher rates, but employees have a lot more hidden costs, right? Including the cost of complacency. Whereas a subcontractor, they want to do a good work for you. So complacency isn't as normal or as typical, where you don't encounter it as much, right? There's just so many things that you need to consider for that. And this is also the part where you dive more into automations like AI and you could do that before as well, but this is when you really rely on them to be like, okay, I need this to be a well-oiled machine so I don't feel like I'm working 60 hours a week and the business is running me, right? And then the last kind of bit that's always, Grow 2.0, it's a reoccurring thing, and it just brings that stage all over again. And that's when you think of other things that you could do, maybe reinvest back into your business or have another, stream of income that's coming in, or you want to develop your team further, or, it's a different level. So I'm sure all of these things are running around in your head all at the same time, but a visual like this is supposed to kind of keep you in line with, one thing at a time. We don't have infinite resources, so we need to focus. So that's kind of like the introduction of it. So when we do a business audit, we try to slot people into whatever these stages are. So I'm going to share now sort of what we do when we do a business audit. So first off, we typically meet with somebody and we have a discovery call, right? And we will assess kind of what they need. And we always recommend maybe we should start with, a business audit to help us understand more about what you want to do. So even the people that have the most processes, or, like, yeah, I've already been through this, they understand why a business audit is necessary, because we don't want to spend time or resources in a spot in your business that doesn't require it, because it's inefficient, right? So there's different parts of a business audit that we typically go through. A lot of it in operations focuses on, admin, and who do you need for admin, or can these things be done by someone else or another platform, right? You don't typically need to do repetitive things if a machine can do it for you, right? Like, I mean, that seems pretty common sense. We start off pretty much with what are the tasks. So the first section in here is like the administrative workflow and the optimization. We want to make sure that you're aware of all the tasks that are happening. I can't tell you how many times we've had 2 people from a business come in and they both have different answers for these questions, right? Like, some of the questions would be, what are your recurring daily, weekly, and monthly admin tasks? Like, what are there tasks that frequently get delayed or deprioritized? And a lot of the times, they have different roles, and it makes sense. But if you don't check in with your team, your existing team, this might be an issue, or there might be duplication of work, or you find out that someone's sitting there and inputting information from like 3 different sources, but it's the same information and they're doing it manually every time. So not only is that inefficient, it just invites human error and you're wasting time, right? You're just wasting time. And it's probably not the most fun task for that person to do. So they're probably not very engaged with that, right? Then we look at tools and software. When you look at tools, you want to make sure that you have the right ones. We've talked about this earlier. It's either that people use too many tools or not enough of the proper tools. I know lots of people who like to go on AppSumo, which it's a great website. If you're hearing this, please sponsor me. But they look at, hey, this would be really good with this. They're beginner stages tools typically. And it's lovely that they have that opportunity where you're not stuck into a subscription. You can actually purchase your licenses from AppSumo for some of these tools forever. You don't have to worry about a subscription. However, what are you using fragmented tools? So by that, I'm like, do you have a tool that's just for invoicing, but then you have a tool that's for your CRM bit or your client relationship manager? And then do you have a tool also that, will do your financial reports? Like, they're all fragmented and they don't talk to each other. And that's usually what takes up the most time. So we usually ask to see, hey, where do your tools go? How do they talk to each other? Have you tried any tools that didn't work for you? And sometimes we get answers where it's just too overwhelming for somebody. And that's because at the very beginning, when you go and sign up for something, you are not going to know how to use it. So of course it's overwhelming, right? And even though we might think, hey, in our opinion, in our experience, this tool would work really great for your business, and they'll just say, it was too overwhelming. And that's fine, because then we might be able to go through it to say, yeah, that's because you didn't have somebody that set it up for you, right? So of course it's overwhelming. It makes sense. The other thing was, how well do they integrate with each other, right? So to avoid that whole, hey, are they talking to each other? Are you inputting things manually? Like, how are we doing this? It's about figuring out an ecosystem that works for you. What worked for one client doesn't mean it's going to work for the next. So it's not a copy paste type of job. We're not selling them on a system. We're selling them on a service of integrating what their business is, like taking all the information from up here where it lives for them and putting it into a system so that someone else can run it too, so that you don't have to be burnt out all the time. So you don't have to be, present to make sure that every single email goes out by hand. We don't want that from our tools and our software. And workflows and SOPs, that's kind of the next subsection. It's like, do you have enough written down? Does your business live just in your head, or can somebody pick up where you left off to continue things? Or have you taught somebody how to do some of these things, right? The workflows, whenever I talk about a workflow, I typically think in automation. So now it's really easy to do automations. You have a lot of CRMs that will already do it for you. And now even AI. So if you're remotely interested in like OpenAI or some of the other ones like ChatGPT, they offer automations that you can plug in that will talk to some of your other tools, or that will remember that they have to do things for you, tasks. So you're automating tasks for them. And this could happen while you're sleeping, right? So it's very easy to get some of that stuff done and out of the way. It will prevent you from being the bottleneck of what needs to happen day to day for you. And some of the other things that we talk about is a subsection on challenges and delegation, because everybody wants to hold on, like as a business owner, like you want to hold on to all of your tasks because you know how to do them best. And I agree, but that's not where your zone of genius lies, right? Like you got into a business because you have a service to offer, and maybe you want to do the client work versus the actual back end stuff. Or maybe you want to do the back end stuff, but you also want to work on development. So we delegate the client work to somebody else. We delegate the marketing to somebody else, and you just want to focus on developing. Like it depends on what you want your business to look like. But this is where we find out where those priorities lie, so that we can make a recommendation to say, hey, I think all of these tasks are able to be done by this. This can be delegated. This is what you keep, and this is what is no longer relevant. So every time you go through one of those cycles that I mentioned before, so I'll put it back up on the screen so you guys can see. So every time you go through like a reoccurring growth stage, or like you're going again into stage 3 for scaling, some of the processes that you had before no longer make sense because your volume changes. So you're never just done and set up. It's cyclical. It comes back in a couple of years or in 2 years or a year. It depends on when you receive this kind of abundance in leads and clients. Got another comment here from Mel. She says, automating some of your admin tasks are a game changer. 100%, because you're not sitting there just, like a zombie trying to do them over and over. I mean, we've all been victim to this whole, no, I have to stay up to do it, and I'm the worst for it. I stay up all the time, and I shouldn't, and I need to sleep because like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that, because sometimes I am my own bottleneck, and maybe some more of the tasks can be automated. So that's always something that you can keep in the back of your head. Thanks for that, Mel. And then our next subsection would be on compliance and record keeping. Some of the businesses that we work with have to be compliant in order to keep some of their certifications. So we work with construction businesses or professional services. So like accountants, lawyers, they all have regulatory bodies, and they all need to be compliant in certain things. So how do you organize that? How do you manage it? How do you ensure that records are being kept, properly? It's a fine line between forgetting to do that and just never doing it ever, because it's just not in the time budget, right? Like you have to have like a resource budget and a time budget too. And that's when we talk a lot about having an ideal calendar and just setting up your week in a way that you will allow to have other things like to pop in. And I get it, like I'm busy too. Everybody's busy. But if you don't use your calendar properly, you will run the risk of never getting any of that stuff done, and that you're just flying by the seat of your pants, or you're just constantly putting out fires. And I know that sometimes some industries work like that, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't. There are certain things that will change last minute. Like in the construction industry, for example, scheduling is really hard, right? Because there's changes that happen all the time. But everything else that happens around that doesn't need to be that a fire to be put out, right? We can deal with some parts of the industry that are the norm, and then other parts we can alleviate with having more planned time to do things, right? I guess that's sort of the first section. I was recommended to, have some of the horror stories, I guess, that would come up. I'll give you one where while automations are great and integrations are great, if you don't have somebody there to kind of sort of babysit or overlook them, you're not going to know if something doesn't go through, right? So sometimes there are mistakes that happen, but if 95% of the work is being done by a machine, the other 5% can easily be done by somebody just overlooking it. Invoices not syncing to your accounting system, and then you realizing that your actual balance to your accounting system is so far off that you're like, something went wrong at some point, right? That's terrifying. Luckily, it became just an exercise of going in and refreshing things on the CRM part, and they were added to it. Another horror story, I guess. It's not really once the system is in, it's usually when you're setting it up. So if you're setting it up by yourself, you can have a lot of horror stories, I guess. So if you're switching from a desktop version to an online version of something, and then you realize that, hey, the desktop data doesn't convert properly into online, or you don't notice until you've already started using it and changing it, that's a big problem, right? So that could be a horror story, but that's easily avoided if you have somebody in helping you to transfer that data or to check that data before we start going. And remember, we always save. Always have a backup somewhere, right? I guess the one thing that we didn't really talk about in this admin discussion in the first section is there is also a hidden cost of task switching. So I was serious when I said not only should you have an ideal calendar with time blocks, your staff should too, because your staff or your subcontractors or whatever, they're the ones taking the time to do things. And the more you switch, the more you don't allow your brain to have, a chunk of time that's dedicated just for that, the more money you're spending in having your brain switch back and forth and getting reacquainted again with that information or with what the task at hand is. So that's definitely one of those hidden costs of inefficiencies. And our second part of the audit is marketing, right? And some people love marketing and some people hate it, and it's okay to be either. I think people are getting burnout from content creation. I think they're stressing out about something that doesn't necessarily, you don't see a return on investment right away, or you don't know what you're doing, so you're just kind of throwing things and seeing what sticks. That works in the first stage, like when you're building, but it doesn't work when you're already scaling or already in a more advanced growth stage. You can't just throw something at the wall and see what sticks. There has to be some strategy, and that's how you can address the burnout. You don't need to post every day. You don't need to have all of the platforms, because your ideal clients don't really live on that platform. And this is why it's so important at this stage here. I'm just going to plop it back on the screen at the build stage to understand your brand. Like, who is your ideal client? This is why you want to know, because it literally trickles into everything else, right? It trickles into your website, how you talk to your ideal clients on the website. It trickles into your marketing, your channels, right? Like your socials, because it's great to have followers, but are those followers converting for you? Like, what are you trying to get? And I know that people tend to think that, hey, more followers the better because they get exposure. Exposure doesn't work unless you can convert that attention into money or into leads or into relationships, right? So some of us that are really small business owners, when we look at social media, it's a task. It's a task and a half. So I have people that help me with it, because I don't want to spend the time to do this myself when I could be here educating, or where I could be in discovery calls, or where I could be doing the work, right? But I also want to build a community. So even though I only have like 1,000 followers, I've gotten more leads from those followers than anywhere else, right? And that's my goal, is to be able to have people relate to me, to what I'm saying. So have a strategy. So we have a strategy in place to say, hey, we really want to focus on XYZ. This is how we're going to educate people, and this is how we can answer questions if we get them, right? What is that strategy? It's not just about selling your services. It's about, what kind of value do you provide? And also, I'm only providing that value 8 times a month, right? Anything else that I post in between, it's because I want to, and it's fun, and it's something for me to connect with an audience, right? But I'm not posting every day. I'm not doing the things that people say they are. If you are a content creator, that's different, right? Like, that's your bread and butter, and that's where you work. I don't work in that realm. I work in the online realm. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, those are just tools for me to build that audience, right? I know that nobody really wants to talk about burnout, but it's just, that's it. Everybody experiences it, right? Content creation burnout. And we kind of went over this, but I guess the idea of the vanity of the metrics trap, and like how your followers don't pay the bills, it's true, right? Because how many of them actually convert into leads? And at first, when I saw that I was getting leads from Instagram, I was just sort of floored, because I didn't think that it would pan out this way for me. And that's when I started working more on strategy to say, I think, looking at the metrics, people respond well to these types of posts. People in my community, people that are relevant to what I'm doing, right? I'm not talking about people who are looking for viral things. I don't want to be viral because I can't accommodate that sort of volume of work. So it's actually going to be bad for me if any of these things do go viral. I'm not a person that sells products, right? Like, you have to be really clear on who your audience is and who your customers are, your clients. I don't sell products, or I don't sell digital products either. So it's not like there's an unlimited amount of products that I can accommodate that kind of demand with. So why would you want that? But even in services, like you want to be booked out till next year, I promise you can do that with a couple hundred followers, right? Like you don't need thousands to have that done. And when it comes to lead generation, right? Because I talked a lot about, Instagram or people responding on LinkedIn, having that, you should always have a stream of leads, right? If you're not, and you're doing really well because you've been in business for a really long time, that's great. You can get word of mouth referrals. They're probably the best in terms of they're not only problem aware, but they're solution aware. So those are the easiest sort of clients, right? So word of mouth is typically in that category. When you're getting leads from, your marketing, they're most likely problem aware, but not solution aware. That's why they're coming to you. Or you can get a few that are both, right? When you're getting leads maybe from your website where it's more static and you're not updating as much, you're not, that's where they're cold leads, right? So you have to measure the way that your leads actually present themselves to you. So then you have to go put your time and energy and resources in the spot that brings you in the easiest of that, right? So if they're both problem aware and solution aware, that's where you go. That's where you put most of your time in there. Or else you're just going to waste time. You're going to waste money. I see a lot of people that want to do Google ads, but they haven't even tested their website to see, like, where are you losing people? Which page is it? Can I fix it? So what you're doing is you're amplifying a problem versus just testing it organically, fixing everything, then seeing that there is organic reach and that people go through the journey in your website to contact you. Then you amplify that because there's some success there, right? Everything is about metrics, because if you're just doing things to do things, you might not get the results that you want. Okay. So this part of the business audit that we would do is just a marketing strategy and execution. So we talked a little bit about that. But before we go into it, it is 1:34. So for those of you that are just tuning in, I'm just going to do another quick station intro. So we are live at 107.7 and 105.3 FM on the United Public Radio Network in the beautiful city of New Orleans. I am Adriana Fierastrau, and I am your host for Negotiating Happiness, where we talk all about entrepreneurship and the journeys that everybody goes through. You can check out some of our archived episodes online on all of our socials, or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of it will be there. Just type in United Public Radio Network and look out for Negotiating Happiness. Give us a follow or a subscribe or anything, just to know that you're around here, and that will help us create more content. We're just diving into business inefficiencies and how we can address them with a business audit. This is something that we offer to our clients, and it's very involved. Like you're doing that part, you're answering those questions, and we're coming up and we're picking out things and requiring more information from you. And then we go back and we work our magic. We'll do a report for you with a step-by-step of, hey, this is how it all works. Here's what our recommendation is. Here, if you have options, or here, if you want to DIY certain parts of it, we give you some of the resources. And then if you need help, that's when we can come in. And typically this is how our relationships start now, because it's already with a really good understanding of the business. It really helps to get us to know you, right? So some of the things that we ask is kind of like a marketing overview, what we currently talked about, or a content and social media overview, right? Like, what kind of content do you create? Do you think it's too much, or does your audience really live on TikTok? Like, is that who your demographic is? And that sometimes indicates an issue with branding and branding messaging. So that's what we have to go back to basics, right? I always say this: people that are naturally entrepreneurial have really good business ideas, and the reason why they experience success so quickly is because their ideas work. But what that means sometimes is that they forget about the whole build, grow, scale sort of model, like business model. So they're right into the growth stage at this point, and they're wanting to scale forgetting that like the building blocks haven't been built yet. So a lot of the times we'll be able to see that when we look at their social media to say, you're talking to everybody. You're not narrowed down into who your actual audience is, right? Not that we want to restrict you from what you're doing, but there's a way to do it where you're targeting different markets, right? But that has to become your community. So we can see that they're all over the place, or we can see that they didn't do that research. Has it changed, right? I think I was talking before, there are plenty of people who have word of mouth referrals, but they don't have an active online presence. And in 2025, that's really hard because, I mean, look at what, a couple of years ago, we were all locked in our houses, not being able to go and talk to anybody, but online was our refuge, or so we would do our shopping, or whatever the case is, right? So we have to be very aware of how things can change for us. And social media is one of those tools that it's available for you. So use it, you know. This is when we ask about audience insights, right? This section. We ask about the branding and messaging as well, the lead generation and email marketing, if you do that, right? Advertising, partnerships, referrals, like we're trying to understand where all the sources coming from, you know, we don't want to have a period of time where nothing's coming through for you. We want you to continue to have it so that you can grow and you can scale. And a lot of the times people tend to say, well, I know people, right? And like, that's great that you know people, or I'm just going to do Google ads, right? I already told you, like the trap of Google ads, throwing money at stuff. It doesn't work if you don't test it, or if you're not clear on who your clients are, because I'll give you the perfect example. When I first started out, I was doing virtual assisting. So my website was all about virtual assisting. So if I went to go put in Google ads, a lot of people that wanted to become virtual assistants would click on it, even because I would have pages that would explain what a VA is, because it was still sort of new for businesses. But I didn't want my ad money to be spent by people who wanted to become VAs, because I was already one. I wanted clients to do it. So obviously I wasn't speaking to the right audience enough that Google understood that this was not the purpose, right? So that has a whole other implication where you're talking about your website copy. You're talking about your SEO on your website. You're also talking about how you're setting up your Google ads, right? Like there's so many things that sort of work together to make something successful. The next segment would be systems and the tools deep dive. So we would ask them. I think we talked a bit about it before, about kind of like the shiny object syndrome, right? Where you're like, oh, look, I've got all these tools. Now I want to be able to use them all. And sometimes you are able to, and sometimes it's really cool, but they don't fit into your ecosystem. They don't. It's just stuff that you want to do because it's, oh, it would be nice if we had this, but you haven't built it into your system yet. So we try to integrate that in for you. Or we say, hey, you've paid for 3 other tools that have overlap in capabilities. Can we narrow it down, right? Can we make it so that you're not paying for all these subscriptions, and see what the best situation is to get all those capabilities, but maybe in one platform? Another I guess a real life fail would be even using tools for automation like Zapier or Make.com. I love them. I think they do a great job. Some of them are very user friendly, but they do fail as well, right? There are Zaps or Make.com connections, or whatever the tool may be. It could be all of them that will fail, and that's not really on the tool. It's really more on the situation. So if you're connecting it to 3 other platforms around, you have to kind of understand that sometimes those connections they'll just time out, or they'll fail, or they just want you to log in again. So this is why it's important to understand how these tools work, or to have somebody on your team that understands, so that you're not stuck or thinking, oh my God, I've lost all this data. Give you an example. For Zapier, you could just manually pull the data through. So it records it. It just hasn't completed the Zap yet. So don't panic. Just illustrating the importance of having somebody around that understands how all of this stuff works, right? The other thing that I would probably warn against, and we have questions in this in this here in our questionnaire for the audit is that you might be good with the tools, you might be ready to go, you've paid for to have integrations or to have the everything set up by us, but then your team is just completely not on board with it, that it will fail because you need people to be able to integrate that into their day-to-day. So if you're changing your systems completely, then you should probably also allot time and resources into training or into, hey, can you test it out, and then have this person that is an implementer available to you to answer questions on how to do it. A lot of these platforms and tools have really good tutorials online on YouTube or on their websites, or just educational pieces, but it's not the same as you applying it to your own business. So when we look at this kind of thing, we ask questions that is specifically, how do you use it? How do you wish you would use it? And is it being used, or have you given up? And it's typically because there's no consistency in the usage of the tool, and that's a problem. And that's typically because of staff or the team. So that's something to sort of think about, or to just providing that support will definitely help, because it's not only overwhelming for you as your business, but it could be overwhelming to the people working for you as well. We have here another section, which is the strategic vision and future planning. This is where we kind of give you that, hey, so we know that you started out with this really great idea, and we know that you don't always want to be the doer, even though you think you might. You don't, because you want to be the thinker. You want to be the person that does the development. You want to be the person that grows this into the business that you truly want, right? So this is where you go into the CEO versus the operator mindset. And we ask about, hey, what are all the tasks that you do that you shouldn't be doing, right? Or we explain that, and we go into detail of, like, here's why you don't want to do this, right? We'll do exercises on, here's how to stage everything out, or how to plan everything out, how to delegate, because you want to have a chunk of time every week for innovation. Or I guess we've seen a trend in businesses that want to franchise, right? So what do you do if you're still running the business? This business is bringing in cash flow, but also eventually you want to franchise. You have to get it ready for that. So there's usually a timeline. So we put out a timeline of, hey, the next 6 months, here's what you should probably work on if you're thinking about the future. Because separately, after we do this audit, we'll have like a 30-day plan that could happen immediately, and then a 90-day plan to be like, oh, here's what you do in the first quarter of this, right? But separately, for the future, how do you prepare for that? So here's some tips on how to franchise, or here's some tips on how that would work, or here's what level you need to get at in order to experience some of that positively, right? And when I was looking some of this information up, it was very like, all the articles were written from a you have to actually do it kind of point of view. So it's like, a vision without execution is hallucination, right? So it's great that you have all of this this information, or all of these ideas, but it's no good if you're not going to execute it, right? So how do you execute it? So this portion in that audit will help you to say, here's, step 1 through 10, here's what you need to accomplish. It becomes sort of a list, right? So you don't have to worry about execution, or you can worry all you want, but at least you have a plan, right? And another thing that we talk about too in that segment of our business audit is risk management. It's like, how do you prepare for things? Do you have insurance? Some of the operational things that we just need to think about. And we highlight, hey, this is something that we definitely need to work on, right? Or this is definitely something that you can give you a referral for, or a recommendation on how to do it in the most cost-effective way or time-effective way, right? And it's something that that a lot of people already take care of, or they've never had to think about it. So it just depends on your size. We have a question here from Melissa. It says, team members have to be on board, especially managers and supervisors. That's right. So this was relating to the bit about the implementing tools that you're never going to use because your team isn't on board. So that's something that you can work on, training and development with your team, and to explain, like, this is actually going to make, your life easier. It's going to keep us on track. It's going to keep us, doing more and more and more, because that's what you want. So yeah, for sure. You need to have the people that are at the top on board to keep reminding the people that work that this is just how we evolve as a company, right? Which I see it all the time. It's not always a priority for people, right? But then we just end up spending more time and money trying to do it again in three to 6 months or a year, right? So that's true. The next section would be, so we talked about innovation and future planning here. And it's just our last section is just kind of like, do you have any additional concerns, right? We always want to hear from the business owners because they're the ones that run this every day. So we don't know everything. This is literally the purpose of this whole thing, is that we want to be able to understand kind of what your priorities are. At the end of the day, we make recommendations based on our experience. If you want to take them, then that's great. Here's how we can support you, or here's what we can do so you can do some things on your own if that's what you wish, if you want to be more hands-on. But if you don't, and you say to us, hey, this is my priority here, no problem. We can help you with that. Sometimes it's very obvious that in order to get to that step, we need to do like 2 steps before. So we get to kind of explain that again to the client, and 9 times out of 10, they understand. And they're just busy. So they don't need to understand all of this like we do. So this is why we're there, right? We're there to make them feel more at ease and to make them understand that there's a plan. We can execute this. You just need to wrap your head around it and approve it. And then on we go, right? So once we have this sort of questionnaire done from the client, we'll go into a review meeting, and we will ask additional questions based on like the answers that they already have. Then we go away and we turn it into this format of 30-day plan, 90-day plan. We identify some of the things that they do really well in hopes that they would keep that up, and then some of the things where we say, you could really work on this too. And this could be based on conversations that we've had with them already, so they're aware, right? But we're just putting it there so that it's easier to process once they're going through it. The other thing would be their 90-day plan, so longer term, then their future visions, and just usually in the innovation part is a lot broader because we haven't dove into it, kind of thing. So we always say, let's try and fix some of these things now that need to be fixed or that need to be added, in order to have you run it a lot smoother. And then you have time to kind of develop the innovation or the future plans that you do have. So it's all about finding a good balance for that person. So yeah, that's just how we do our business audits. They're fairly straightforward, and we've done a lot in the past little bit. So it's signaling to me that entrepreneurs want to grow. Entrepreneurs want to, make sure that their teams are succeeding as well, which is a really good feeling to have, that the clients that you're working with actually want to see their teams do well, regardless if they're, subcontractors, employees, or just collaborators. Like, we collaborate a lot with other businesses because we think there's enough to go around. And this is how we get the expertise that we get, right? So right now on our team, we'll have people that deal strictly with administrative tasks or HR tasks, or recruiting, maybe even as part of HR. We'll have people that are just strictly website developers, and then we'll have people that do social media, and then we'll have people, me, that do a lot of the tech implementation or the tech training. We're working on a few things where we're doing custom AI chatbots, not just chatbots, but also AI agents for tasks. So now we are literally plugging in a series of instructions for them in order to to bring out something that's customized to the client or to their business that they'll be able to use over and over again. And you can make these agents for anything, right? I think right now people are looking at AI either with fear or with excitement. And if you're looking at it with excitement, you're thinking that you can just have a conversation with it and it will give you what you need. But unfortunately, there's a lot more than that. Prompt engineering is a real thing, and understanding how AI can make mistakes, or how they say it hallucinates, is really important. So when you make these custom agents, you're actually giving them a set of specific rules, but it's limited. So you want to be able to do, this is one step out of the 10-step process. This is why you could have multiple custom agents to get you to that level 10. But if you're sitting there just saying, no, AI would never be able to do this because I just need a human brain to do it, it's because you haven't taken out that instruction, because it's so easy for you to understand in your own brain, obviously. You need to take out that instruction, put it on paper, and say, how can I automate this through an agent, right? It's not hard once you understand how they all work. I could do like a whole episode on AI if this is what people want, but that's about it. I just wanted to kind of check in because I haven't checked in a really long time. I've just been very busy with clients and life, and we always talk about on the show about negotiating your happiness and what's that thing that makes it worth it. For me right now, it's summertime here. And again, if you haven't tuned in before, like we're up in Canada, it's summertime and everybody wants to be out. And I think you can see a little bit of sun coming out of my window there, but we want to be out. We want to be hiking. We want to be swimming. So that's what makes it worth it for me, in order to be able to do this entrepreneurship, journey, and just have the time. So if I want the time, then I have to, focus more on automating even some of my own tasks more than they are, I guess, or using AI to my advantage to get some of these things done. There's so many things that we could use it for. Maybe the next episode, what we'll do is we'll talk about AI. But I think next week I'm going to have Brittany from Creative Dynamics on, so we can talk more about business efficiencies and what you can focus on yourself if you're interested in DIYing, or what you can, outsource if it's going to make your life easier, or if it's going to make you get some of your time back. So thank you so much for everybody that tuned in, and thank you for all of the questions. They were wonderful. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans. Thank you for the platform. And thank you for everybody that's also going to tune in into the archives. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And if you still want to leave questions, leave them on socials and we'll see the notifications. Have a great one, guys.